Welcome back to Coffee and Tea with Carrie V. I'm Carrie V, your biggest fan, the person who will believe in you until you can believe in yourself. Coffee and Tea with Carrie V is all things leadership, communication, confidence, clarity, and life. And joining us today is Jim Rollo. Jim, I met at our local BNI group, and he is the owner of Jim Rollo State Farm. And he is a fascinating person. He's a kind person and has a lot of insight that I know you're going to want a notebook and a pen, unless, of course, you're driving. So grab that notebook, grab that pen. And Jim, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. That's good advice about not writing while you're driving.
Yes, it is. I thought it was appropriate with a state
That
farm.
that improves your eligibility for insurance. That's good.
So, Jim, tell us what is waking you up in the morning these days. What is exciting about life?
Well, it's exciting about life to mm, my my personal philosophy of life has always been for many years. I'll say since I was in my 20s, I sat down and actually wrote down that my mission is to contribute more than I consume.
I love that.
And so every day I wake up with a mission of contributing to the lives of other people. And fortunately, there are many ways that we are able to do that, and our business really is really just a vehicle to do that. And so it's a track that I get to run on forever. And so that's really what gets me up in the morning at about 4:50 a.m. every day to go walk a couple miles and sit down and have breakfast and coffee and journal and so that's contributing more than I consume.
I absolutely love that whole philosophy, that answer, and that you're up early and you're journaling, and it sounds like you have a very specific morning routine that you tap into.
That's true, I do. And the challenge is if we travel, we're going to be going to visit my wife's family in Colombia in South America here next week,
Mhm.
and that sort of disrupts my routine. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So how do you get back on your routine, Jim? Do you ever struggle with that, or have you ever struggled? Or are you just one of those
mm,
people that's like, I'm back in the routine.
no, I'm a pretty disciplined person.
Hmm.
So no, when we're back, when we're out, well, I'm disciplined. Some people would say, well, if you're disciplined, you'll journal even while you're traveling, right? And so that's I don't put that pressure on myself. I say, okay, we're traveling and I'm not going to be journaling. That doesn't mean I'm not thinking about things that I'm going to be journaling about when I get
Yes.
back, but yeah, so I might skip a week or two there, but pretty much, every day I'm, writing one page,
Yeah.
in a journal. So
What kinds of things do you journal about? I'll make this a few part question. What kind of things do you journal about? How did you get into it? And how long have you been doing that?
I've probably been doing it for, I would say 5 years. Uh, but every day my I use like one word and then uh, read, and then I also write out by hand the entire Bible verse that I'm going to
Mhm.
be journaling about. So it's usually something related to observations about life, about experiences, and vision for the future. So it can be a number of different things.
Yeah.
So, but it's always based on a Bible verse.
And what got you started on that? What made you wake up one day and say, oh, I need a journal?
Uh, I don't know. I was watching a video with a guy who is I've been watching for quite a few years. A guy, and I read one of his books, well, a couple of his books anyway. But a guy named Jordan Peterson, who you may have heard of, but he wrote a book called The 12 Rules for Life, and
Okay.
so I read that, and I don't know. He talked about that, and so I said, I should start, because you've heard about journaling, and so that kind of motivated me to do it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm a huge believer in the power of journaling. So good to know. See, I knew there was a deeper reason why I like you.
Yeah, yeah.
So you
So,
are a very successful businessman. What is your secret? Is there a secret?
well, yeah, there is. I mean, so well, I wouldn't say there's one, but I have a philosophy of which I've always applied, where when I've sort of modified as we go along, but uh, it's really listen, and which there's several pieces to that. I
Yeah,
would add, listen, learn, promise, and deliver.
I love that.
And so the listening part is a combination of a couple things, because thinking ahead to promising. So in business, while you're listening, you have to be listening internally to your own company to learn what are you capable of, and then listening to customers to understand what their needs are and be able to uh, come up with a solution that matches what you've heard about what your company's capable of, and what you've heard about what the customer uh, situation or circumstances are, and then be able to make a promise
Yeah.
that can be kept.
That's key.
Right. So you can't make a promise if you don't understand what the customer needs, and you can't make a promise if you don't understand what your company is capable of doing.
Yes.
So, and in our business, in the insurance world, that's all we sell is a promise. That's it. We sell a
Okay.
promise that if you ever have a problem, we're going to be stand in, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, that we're actually going to be there, and we're going to be able to put you back on your feet, um, depending on what the event was that transpired.
Yeah.
And sometimes listening, uh, we can't ask customers questions and expect them to directly tell us what they need.
Hmm.
Part of it is listening and observing and understanding the customer well enough, so that even though they're not telling you directly what they need, you're able to interpret what they're saying, and then
Mm.
provide feedback to them that says, I think what I heard is, or, there have been cases in my previous life. I started my insurance business in '07, but in my previous life, over the course of 15 years, I started 15 companies in 7 different countries in South America. Well,
Wow.
Latin America, meaning Mexico, Caribbean, Central America, and South America. So,
Yeah.
and part of what we did there was understanding the customer's problems, sometimes better than they did, and
That's
being
key.
able to say to them, look, this is what's happening in your business, the following things, and then have them shake their head up and down in amazement and say, how did you know that?
Because you're the pro.
Yeah, well, because you listen and you dig in and you say, I don't want to sit in the conference room. I want to go out on the factory floor and walk around and see what's really happening.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, anyway, that's my, listen, learn, promise, and deliver, and then repeat. Do it again and keep
Yeah.
doing it. It's not complicated.
No, it's not complicated, but sometimes the things that are the simplest are not necessarily the easiest, because that takes a lot of discipline to do that.
It does.
Getting
Absolutely, it
getting
does.
back to that word discipline.
Yeah, and being
So
relentless about it, right? Being relentless
yes.
about it. And so it's, the minute you say I've arrived, is when you start going backwards.
Yeah, that's a problem
Because
when
there is no such thing as I've arrived.
no,
Never.
no. Constantly reaching and growing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to.
So how did you develop that mindset, Jim? Have you always been someone who is constantly wanting to reach and grow, or was there a pivotal moment in your life when you started getting more into that?
I would say always. I can remember when I was 10 years old, sitting on my parents' front porch, uh, watching the paper boy on the corner counting his money. And I went up and sat next to him. Mark Johnson was his name. I still remember it. 56 years ago,
Oh my
actually.
gosh, yeah.
And so, I asked him, how long does it take you to complete your, finish your paper route? He had, I don't know, 75 customers, whatever. And
Excuse
he
me.
told me, and I said, well, we can probably do it in half of the time if I help you. And he said, okay, meet me tomorrow at this location. So I did. And he would hand me papers and I would sprint from house to house. And then he gave me, I don't know, 50 cents, whatever it was. And then 2 years later, when I turned 12, he decided he didn't want his paper route anymore, and I got it. And I
Wow.
used that money to buy my first car for cash when I was 16 years old.
Wow. So you've always had an entrepreneurial mindset then.
Yeah. Yeah. And then our customers on the paper route, I would say, gee, your lawn is looking a little shabby there. Do you think I could mow it for you? Or
Cross-pollinating.
shovel the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So what got you into State Farm?
well, so I was working in Latin America. We were living in Miami, and I was traveling. My wife's from Colombia. She, moved from Colombia to Miami, and then I was leaving to travel to South America,
Yeah.
every week, living out of a suitcase. And after our first year of marriage, we said, this is not going to work. This is not what we signed up for collectively, right?
Yeah.
And so we said, well, we're going to do something different. And so we sat down and made a list of, maybe 10 things that we wanted to start our own business. We didn't want inventory. We didn't want delivery problems. We wanted local customers. If we wanted to travel, it was going to be for pleasure, not for business, not require travel, something we could do forever, and something that would allow us to reinvest in the community.
Mm.
And so, we had a whole list. We sat down and made a list. We deliberately planned out the business we wanted, the life that we wanted, and then we said, okay, what types of businesses meet this criteria? And I said, let's start an insurance agency. And so that's what we did. And I grew up in Endicott, so we said, let's move back, to Endicott and do that. And well, so we were going to do independent agency where you represent, 10 different insurance companies and you're an independent broker. But I talked to two different people, one in Miami who was a friend that has a large agency in Miami, and another guy in Salt Lake City. Both of them had been in the business for more than 30 years. And I told them what I was thinking about doing. And both of them, they don't know each other, separately in separate conversations, said to me, look, if I had it to do over again, I would be a captive agent, meaning I would only represent one company. It would be State Farm.
Really?
And I didn't know anything. Yeah, I didn't know anything about State Farm, so I trusted both of them, and I, respected both of them. So I said, well, I better find out about State Farm.
Yeah.
And so I did, and went through a very rigorous process because it's tough to become a State Farm agent. And then, the timing was perfect because actually tomorrow, August 1st, will be 17 years ago that
Wow.
we opened the first agency in Endwell. And they said, oh, yeah, well, we have this opening in Endwell, which is where I grew up, basically. I grew up in Endicott, but, they're sort of connected together.
Yes.
And so that's how it happened. But that
That is
wasn't,
very cool.
yeah. that's how it happened. So.
And I know that and you've mentioned it here too, love to give back to the community. What are ways that you give back to the community and that you
Right.
do via
Sure.
your business?
Well,
Yeah.
a couple different ways. First of all, I've helped several people who worked for me open their own agencies.
Wow.
And so mentoring and developing people who have opened their own agencies. Actually, uh, we've directly or indirectly created 7 different State Farm agencies.
Wow, that's fabulous.
Yeah. So there's that. And by the way, I call it reinvesting.
Mm-hmm.
So on the giving back thing,
Yes.
uh, if you ever think about when maybe if you had a sibling or two of your kids together, and one of them took a toy from the other one, what does the parent say to the one who took the toy?
Give it back.
Give it
Share.
back,
Yeah.
right? Well, I never took anything from anybody. And so I've worked for
That's right.
everything I have. And so I call it reinvesting.
I love that. Much better
Yeah.
term.
Yeah. I call it reinvesting, not giving back. Because there's an implication, from the time you're a little kid, give it back. Well, wait a minute. I
Yeah.
didn't take anything from anybody. So that's
Great
just
insight.
a philosophical idea. But
Fabulous.
yeah, so we do scholarships for BOCES students. We do scholarships in Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania for the equivalent of BOCES.
Okay.
And we do scholarships for um, the grade school at Catholic schools in Broome County. So altogether, it's 15,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
and then that gets matched by State Farm, so turns into 30. So it's pretty good. Yeah.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
it
So
just makes me so happy to read. And I know you have uh an event coming up, right? That's motorcyclists or
yeah, right. So honor flight, that's another thing
yes.
we do. We do a lot of community events too, sponsor a lot of community events. But anyway, honor flight is a organization that honors our veterans by taking them to see the war memorials in Washington. So they leave from SUNY Broome in April, then again in October with 2 bus loads of veterans, and they take them there for the weekend. And so last year we raised 10,000 for them, and we hope to raise, at least that much or more this year. So
Wow.
August 24th is that event. So there's a motorcycle ride, which is separate from the dinner event, or the luncheon event, which is at the airport in Johnson City. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we
That's
like to do those things. Yeah.
yeah, and it says a lot about you and your employees, your businesses to be in that mindset of making sure that you are pouring into the community and it just says a lot about you.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to contributing more than I consume. That's
Yes.
right.
The way
So
we started, yes.
yeah, yeah. So it's
So
not just words; it's also action, right? We don't
right,
just say it; we do it.
that's right, right? If you're gonna be praying, your feet better be moving kind of thing, right?
Right. Yep.
It
Exactly.
takes action.
Yeah.
So what are some key um, lessons you have learned over the years of being a business owner?
Uh, I would say that you know treating we call them team members, employees, treating them uh, the same way you would want to be treated is important, because I think it's true in our business and it's true in any business that uh, customer retention
Mm,
and employee retention are tightly linked. So if I have high employee turnover, or if you show me a business that does have high employee turnover, I'll show you a business that doesn't have good customer retention. They're losing customers.
hmm That makes sense.
So I think, in our case, for example, we I have unlimited paid time off for my team members.
Wow.
Unlimited. Don't the goal is this. You guys work it out. All I care about is that the customers are taken care of and you have unlimited paid time off.
Wow. Has anyone ever taken advantage of you on that?
No. On
Yeah.
the contrary, right?
Hmm.
I mean, so the other thing that does is that, that reveals character and integrity
Yes.
or the lack thereof,
Yes.
right? So, yeah. Yep.
Wow. That's
So,
quite a concept.
yeah. And then we pay 100% of their medical, dental, and vision.
You're gonna
100%.
you're gonna
They
have
don't pay.
like you're gonna have like 500 job applications on your
Right.
desk.
Yeah. 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 Well, we don't have high turnover, and I mean part of it too is the environment that you create,
Mhm.
right?
That's very true.
So we create a very positive, very respectful environment, which also includes there are times when I fire customers
Hmm.
because they mistreat my team members.
Wow.
So
There.
when somebody sees the caller ID come in and they don't want to answer the phone, I say, "What's that all about?" And then, if they tell me, then there are times when you have to say to the customer, we're unable to satisfy your needs or your expectations. So find somebody else that will, because we can't do it.
Wow. Um, that's not a move or a decision that most business owners take. So that I really commend you for that.
Yeah, well, it, I guess you could say it takes courage
Oh
to
yes,
just
it does.
say, you know, but I can tell you the team members appreciate it and that tells them that they're valued when
Yes.
I won't tolerate someone abusing them.
Yes. Yes, it does.
So,
I absolutely love that. I read that in a book recently. 10x is better than 2x, and
hmm
they talk actively about that whole concept of accepting only those clients and employees that are living up to the values and the boundaries that you have set for yourself and your business. And
right,
there's just not many people who are willing to do that because it's scary. If I
right. It
fire,
is. It
right?
is. Yeah, it is. But once you do it, you realize it's not so scary. It's
Yeah.
in everybody's best interest.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
but it's the same with, I haven't had to do it in a long time,
Hmm.
fortunately, but it's the same with fire. I remember the first time I had to fire somebody,
Mm.
like years ago. I'm talking, 1980s, the first time I had to fire somebody. And, I felt terrible. This particular person's, their spouse had just left them with a couple of kids.
Mm.
And, it was now a single dad who's like there with these two kids, and the day that he comes in late, the day he's got to be fired, and I say, what happened? Well, a dog stole my son's lunch at the bus stop and took off with it. I had to go make him another lunch and take him to school. He was crying, he was upset, and all I could think of is, great, he's going to go home and tell his kids he lost his job.
Yeah.
I saw him years later. He said, you felt worse than I did about
Really?
fire about fire yeah, about firing me. And I mean, I guess he saw it coming and knew it was coming. But it also, I lost you there for a minute.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll get that fixed.
Yeah.
We'll get that.
Anyway, so that for him it was the best thing that ever happened, and that's the way you have to look at any setback.
Yeah.
Any setback in life, as painful as it is, you have to look at it as an opportunity. Okay, this is horrible. No matter what it is, it's horrible. And now what?
Yes.
now how am I going to make an opportunity out of this?
Yeah.
And you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice, seeing that opportunity in the trials that come. That's one of the things, one of the key things I believe that sets people apart, sets you apart as having a true success mindset, being
Right.
able to move past those obstacles. The obstacle is the way. That's the name of the book, right?
Yeah. Well, and I have an observation, and you can look at it in many respects, but the observation is as the pressure goes up, the truth comes out.
Mm. That's
So you
great.
can look at that in all kinds of respects. You can observe it with other people, you can observe it with yourself, uh, and your own response to circumstances and situations. As the pressure goes up, the truth comes out.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
Mm.
So I'm looking at our time going, how did this time go so fast? What do
Oh,
you
okay.
what do you like to do for, like, what's something you love to do for fun? Just to spend time with friends and family or whatever it is, just to have a good time.
Oh, I love to swim, swimming with the grandkids. If there's a pool and it's warm, I will be in the pool
Uh-huh.
for 10 hours.
I
You know,
have a son like that.
bathroom breaks and food, and that's it. I'll be in the pool all day. So,
Yes.
I like that. Love to spend time with we have 6 grandkids, so I love to spend time with them. And but other than that, some people say, well, I like to play sports. I golf in a few fundraising tournaments, but my sport is what I do all day, every day. So
Yeah.
this is my thing. This is what I like to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can tell
So
that you love what you do.
yeah, yeah.
You can
I
tell.
mean, I get to talk to people all day, listen to people all day. Some days I go home and, people have poured out, because we're dealing with people with a claim,
Yeah.
somebody's house gets virtually cut in half by a tree. That's a bad day.
Yes.
But, you're talking to people, maybe they're not having their best day, but you're helping them get through it.
Yeah.
So, you know, what's not to like about that?
That's
Not
it.
the fact that they had something bad happen, but the fact that you're in a position to help them recover from it.
Yes. You get
So,
to help them
yeah,
on that journey of recovery,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So what is your superpower, Jim?
I would say, over the course of time, it is creating and executing on a strategy,
I love that.
seeing opportunities to differentiate from everyone else and change the playing field in our favor.
Love it. That's
So
wonderful.
that's really, yeah. I mean, one of my favorite courses in the School of Management at Binghamton University was strategy, and some of the a lot of the work I did in Latin America was literally transformational strategies that for me were obvious and simple, and ended up just transforming the playing field.
Yeah.
And I've
And
done the same thing in the insurance business too. So,
yeah, I can see that that's a, an amazing superpower for you. And as a journaler, what is something that you could give our listeners, some kind of writing prompt or a journal prompt to get them writing in their own journals?
well, I would say sit down and think about the life you want to create. That's
What is that?
big.
It
That's
is big.
big, right? That's not a 1-day journaling project.
No.
But, if we're not conscious and deliberate and really think through the life I want to create, and don't be afraid to, say, well, I would write it down, but it's absurd because
That's absurd.
it's so far from what my life is today. So what?
Yes.
Write it down, and then you can start to develop a plan to create it. I mean, that's what we did with, that's what I did. I actually, before I met my wife, I sat down because I was, involuntarily going through a divorce, and
Mm.
I sat down and said, okay, I still remember where I was. I was in the Intercontinental Hotel in Guatemala City, and I wrote, you have a little notepad next to the nightstand, on the nightstand with the name of the hotel on it and a pen. And I wrote, I said, okay, how am I going to know? I know I'm not going to be alone. I'm not meant to be alone. How am I going to know the person? And I sat down and wrote down a dozen character traits of the person, and I put it in my wallet. And, it became a prayer in many ways. And, 20 years ago, I met that person and
Wow.
we got married. So we've been married for almost 20 years. So, um, and then we did the same thing with our business. Okay, what kind of a life do we want to create, and have our business be a foundation for creating that life? And we wrote it down. So that's what I would say. What kind of a life do you want to create?
I love that. I'm going to do that myself.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
yeah.
So if someone wanted to connect with you, Jim, how could they do that?
JimRollo.com.
All right. That's easy enough.
Easiest way you can get in there and send an email or whatever, call us, talk to us, whatever. And yeah, that would be it.
Wonderful.
Pretty
And
simple.
I will link that in the show notes just so you can just
Okay.
click and go and talk to Jim. Thank you for hanging out with us today. I
Yeah,
love your
thank you.
insight, and you're always,
Appreciate the invite. It's
oh,
great.
you're very welcome.
Yeah,
Very welcome. We'll look forward to having you back again sometime, Jim.
good. I would love to. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank
Okay.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.